You were supposed to be perfect, adaptable, unstoppable. What happened? The words echoed in the cold, sterile chamber, where the lights flickered faintly, casting elongated shadows over the metallic walls. Drac, a towering, emerald-skinned alien with elongated limbs and 3 glimmering eyes, stared down at the quivering mass in the containment pod. His voice held an edge of disbelief, tinged with frustration. Failure, hissed a voice from the shadows, softer but sharp as broken glass. Air, a wiry alien with translucent skin that shimmered like oil on water, stepped forward. The parasite failed us. It's not them, it's us. We miscalculated. Inside the pod, the parasite writhed, a gelatinous, pulsating creature with tendrils extending and retracting rhythmically. Its form was both repulsive and mesmerizing. The creature was alive, but barely. Its movements sluggish, its colors dull, as if the very life had been drained out of it. No, Drac growled, slamming his elongated hand onto the control panel. The force reverberated through the room. It isn't possible. This species is fragile, primitive, even. They should have been the easiest to conquer. And yet, Air said, with a faint smirk curling across her translucent face, here we are. The species in question was humanity, bipedal, carbon-based, with soft skin and laughably short lifespans. Compared to the vast, resilient organisms across the galaxies, humans were an evolutionary afterthought. Or so the Council of Dominion had thought. Drac's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep contemplation. Every species, Air. Every species before them. The parasite thrived. It evolved within hours, consumed, multiplied. We took over entire planets in days. This anomaly defies logic. Air tilted her head, the light catching her shimmering surface in ripples. Maybe they aren't as fragile as they appear. Humanity's survival had never been part of the invasion script. The parasite, known as the Xythera, was a biological weapon, a masterpiece of the Dominion's biotechnological advances. Engineered over centuries, the Xythera could infiltrate any host, override its biology, and rapidly multiply, converting entire ecosystems into fuel for the Dominion's war machine. It was flawless. Until Earth. When the Xythera was released into the human population, initial observations were promising. The parasite entered its hosts through water supplies, air particles, even direct contact. But then, nothing happened. The hosts didn't weaken, didn't collapse. The parasite didn't replicate. Within days, it began to deteriorate inside the human bodies. Do you know what's truly fascinating? Air said, breaking the silence. She tapped a slender finger on the glass of the containment pod. It's not just that the parasite failed to thrive. It's that humans seem to reject it, almost as if their bodies are repelling it intentionally. That's impossible, Drac snapped. No species has a natural defense against the Xythera. Precisely, Air replied. And yet, they do. Far below the Dominion's observation station, on Earth, humanity carried on, blissfully unaware of their near-extinction event. Well, most of them. A handful of scientists, scattered across the globe, had detected anomalies, strange patterns in waterborne organisms, unexplained spikes in atmospheric particulates. But the evidence was elusive, and the events seemed to resolve themselves before anyone could piece together a coherent theory. In a cramped lab in the Pacific Northwest, Dr. Lila Quinn squinted at the microscope. Her auburn hair was pulled into a messy bun, and a coffee cup, long empty, sat precariously close to her keyboard. On the slide beneath her lens was a sample of water taken from a local reservoir. "You're not normal," she muttered to herself, adjusting the focus. The organisms in the sample were unlike anything she'd seen before. They were foreign, and yet they were breaking down, as if their own biology couldn't sustain itself in the water. "Lila," a voice called from across the room. It was her colleague, Marco, a tall, lanky man with perpetually rolled-up sleeves. "You've been staring at that thing for hours. Maybe it's just contamination." "Maybe," Lila said, not looking up, but she didn't believe it. Something about the sample, about the way the organisms seemed to disintegrate as she watched, felt deliberate. Back on the observation station, Drac and Air weren't alone. A third figure had joined them, towering over even Drac. Its form was encased in a crystalline exoskeleton that refracted light in dazzling patterns. This was Xyn, the Dominion's foremost biotechnologist and the creator of the Xythera. "This is unacceptable," Xyn said, its voice a deep resonance that seemed to vibrate the air itself. The Xythera was designed to be universal. Its failure here threatens the very foundation of our conquest. "Then fix it," Drac said, his frustration boiling over. "Find out what makes these humans different." "I intend to," Xyn replied. It turned its attention to the containment pod, where the parasite's movements had grown even weaker. But this anomaly may not be a flaw in the Xythera. It may be a flaw in our understanding. As the days passed, Xyn's experiments revealed a startling truth. Human biology was, indeed, unique. Their cells produced a certain protein, a microscopic, unassuming molecule that disrupted the Xythera's replication process. It wasn't something humans consciously produced. It was simply part of who they were. "Do you see?" Xyn said, addressing Drac and Air in the dimly lit lab. "This protein acts like a shield. It's not aggressive, not an immune response. It's passive, yet it renders the Xythera inert." Drac's eyes narrowed. "Can we engineer around it?" Xyn hesitated, an uncharacteristic pause for the brilliant scientist. "Possibly, but it would take time. Decades, perhaps centuries. And even then, I cannot guarantee success." "Then we're at an impasse," Air said, crossing her arms. "We can't conquer them, and we can't leave them. Not after they've shown they can resist us." "There may be another way," Xyn said slowly. "A partnership." Drac laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You suggest we ally with these creatures?" "Not an alliance," Xyn corrected. "A study. If we cannot overcome their biology, perhaps we can learn from it. Their resistance may hold the key to evolving beyond the Xythera, to creating something greater." On Earth, Lila and Marco continued their investigation, piecing together fragments of the puzzle. As they worked, they began to sense that something larger was at play, something beyond their understanding. And while humanity remained blissfully unaware of the invasion that had almost been, the seeds of a new chapter were being sown, both on Earth and in the stars. Months turned into years. The Dominion's plans shifted. Instead of conquest, they focused on observation. Hidden satellites orbited Earth, collecting data. Dominion scientists infiltrated human biology under the guise of rare diseases, studying the unique protein that defied their masterpiece. Xyn's experiments expanded. It was no longer about understanding how the humans resisted the Xythera, but about harnessing that resistance to create something greater. The Xythera's failure had taught the Dominion that power wasn't always about strength or adaptability. Sometimes, it lay in simplicity. Drac found himself on the observation deck more often than not, watching Earth from afar. It wasn't admiration, exactly, but there was a deep respect, a grudging acknowledgement of what humanity had accomplished, even unknowingly. "We came here to destroy them," he said one day, his voice low, "and instead, they may save us." Air's reflection joined his in the glass. "Save us?" "Not literally," Drac said, his tone contemplative. "But their biology has given us something we didn't think possible. A chance to evolve, to adapt in ways we never imagined." On Earth, Lila Quinn tapped her pen against her desk, staring at the complex results on her monitor. She felt the weight of something immense pressing down on her, though she couldn't define it. A breakthrough was close, yet so elusive. "Marco," she called, her voice breaking the quiet hum of the lab. "I think this anomaly in the sample, it's not just random. It feels intentional." Marco glanced up from his own desk, his brow furrowed. "Intentional? Like engineered? Maybe. Or maybe it's nature fighting back. But whatever it is, it's not normal," she replied, her voice tinged with both excitement and concern. "And if it's widespread—" Her sentence hung in the air, unfinished. Marco stared at her, his expression mirroring her unease. Neither could shake the feeling that they were brushing against something far bigger than themselves. Meanwhile, Aboard the Dominion's observation station, Drax stood alongside Xyn and Air in the central laboratory, where rows of holographic projections displayed Earth's data. Xyn tapped at the interface, showing them intricate molecular models of the unique human protein. This molecule, Xyn explained, pointing to a glowing structure, it isn't just defensive. It actively integrates with threats. Look, it's almost as if human cells have evolved to neutralize anything foreign. Air's translucent skin rippled in response. Could that mean humans have faced threats like the Xythera before? Maybe this isn't their first encounter with something like us. Drax's eyes flickered with realization. Are you suggesting they've adapted to survive invasions? Xyn turned to face him, his voice solemn. If that's true, it would mean humanity has survived where countless others have fallen. It would make them not just unique, but invaluable. Years passed, and a tenuous peace settled between the Dominion and Earth. Unseen by humanity, Dominion emissaries continued their covert studies, while humans like Lila and Marco unknowingly provided the clues that would bridge the gap between species. One day, as Lila finally pieced together the last fragments of her research, she realized the implications of what she'd found. Humanity wasn't just resistant to this strange organism. They were immune in a way that hinted at untapped potential. Her findings, sent to global scientific communities, sparked a quiet revolution in Earth's understanding of itself. Yet, for every question answered, 100 more emerged. Unbeknownst to her, her work was also being observed far beyond Earth's skies. In the Dominion's High Council chamber, Drax, Air, and Xyn presented their findings to the leaders. Humanity, Xyn declared, has something we cannot replicate. Not through force, nor through science, not yet. But they have survived, and they might be the key to our own evolution. We must learn from them. Drax stepped forward, his voice resonating with conviction. They are fragile, yes, but in their fragility lies their strength. If we are to ensure the Dominion's survival in the ever-changing universe, we must adapt, and they might be the answer. A deep silence filled the chamber before the eldest counselor, his voice heavy with thought, spoke, then observe, learn, and perhaps one day we shall stand as equals. On Earth, Lila stared out at the stars one clear night, an inexplicable feeling of connection tugging at her. Marco, she murmured, do you ever think we're not alone? Like something's out there, watching us? Marco chuckled. You've been working too hard, Lila. But yeah, sometimes I wonder. What neither of them could know was that, far above, Drax watched the same stars. For the first time in his life, he felt not as a conqueror, but as a student humbled by a species he had once deemed insignificant. And so, a new chapter began, not one of dominance or destruction, but of curiosity and quiet coexistence. For in the vast expanse of the universe, the most powerful lessons often come from the unlikeliest places.